In this video, I'm going to give you the truth about Ned Rig fishing when it comes to inshore saltwater. There's a lot of information in here, so we're going to get right into it. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Pat from Salt Strong, and I want to talk about all the hype that you're hearing about Ned Rigs and inshore fishing, and does it work, and is it worth doing? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. It does work, and it works great. In fact, this is a technique that I've been using for the past 4 or 5 years in the wintertime, and have been having great success with it. So my goal by the end of this video is for you to understand more about what a Ned Rig is, why it's so effective, when you should be using it, when you should not be using it, and also the equipment that you need. So again, there's a lot of information here, so let's get started. So first thing, let's talk about what a Ned Rig is. And to define a Ned Rig, we have to go back into the history a little bit. And honestly, when I was doing the research on this video, I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and it's really fascinating with where this started. And essentially what a Ned Rig is what is referred to as a Midwest finesse rig, or Midwest finesse bait. And actually the person that this rig is named after, Ned Key, doesn't like the moniker. He believes that it should be called something else for his predecessors and his mentors that really started using this way back in the 50s. It's definitely a fascinating read. If you're into the history of fishing, I definitely recommend checking that out, the history of the Ned Rig. But going back to the finesse rig and what it is, at its core, it's essentially a mushroom jig head, a lightweight mushroom jig head with a small lure on it, a 2 to 3 inch soft plastic. And it could be anything from a creature bait to just a stick lure, but the idea of it is that it's a finesse lure. It's pretty much a do-nothing lure. Matter of fact, the people that started using this call it a no-feel lure, because as you're working that lure, you really don't feel anything. You're not feeling the bottom. You're not really feeling it swim through the water. The only thing that you're going to feel is the strikes, and that's what's important. Now let's talk about why these lures are so effective. And if you think about it, during the extreme times of the year, especially in the wintertime when that water cools down, these fish do not want to have to burn a lot of energy and a lot of calories to get their food. And that's one of the main reasons why they go after smaller bait. They don't want to take the chance of chasing after big bait and not catching it and burning more calories. They can actually go backwards. So a high probability catch, like a small injured bait fish or something small that's on the bottom, is what they prefer to go after, so they don't have to burn a lot of calories to get it. And that's exactly what this Ned Rig represents, a little small creature that's on the bottom that's going to be easy to catch. Now if you think about it yourself, if you were in your house and it's super cold, but you get underneath your blanket and you get nice, warm, and comfortable, but somebody tells you, hey, we got a juicy cheeseburger for you in the kitchen, you might not want to get up and get uncomfortable to go get it. But that same person might accept a little chicken nugget put right in front of their face, and they don't have to get out of their comfort zone to eat it. That's the idea behind a Ned Rig. It's a small little presentation that's non-threatening. Now of course, the fat guy using a food analogy to get his point across, but hopefully this landed on you. So now that we know why it's so effective, let's talk about when you should use it and when you shouldn't use it. Now you can use this year-round to catch fish. There isn't a time that it won't work, but where it really shines above other presentations is during those extreme periods that we were talking about. So in the wintertime, when that water temperature drops down, these fish don't want to move around. They get really lethargic and they stay in one place. Using a presentation that you can move slowly right along the bottom that's real small is hard for them to resist. And a lot of people don't realize this too, but also in the dog days of summer, when that water temperature gets really, really high, the fish do the same thing. They get lethargic and they don't want to move around. And again, a small presentation moved right in front of them is something that they can't resist. So during the extreme periods, during hot and cold, a Ned Rig can be really effective. Now with everything, nothing is perfect, and there's going to be some times that you don't want to use a Ned Rig when you're inshore fishing. Because we're dealing with lighter jig heads and we're using smaller lures, we have to go down in the power of our rods and the line and the leader. It's a finesse technique. So you're not going to be using this for structure fishing. So you're not going to be skipping docks, and you're not going to be working around mangroves, or basically any time that you have a high probability of getting broken off. This is going to be used in open flats, or it's going to be used in deep holes on your rivers and your creeks where you've got a low chance of getting hung up on something. So it's not something that's going to be suited for every type of fishing, only during certain times. So moving on, let's talk about the type of equipment that you need to use these Ned Rigs. Again, we mentioned earlier you're using lighter stuff. You're using lighter jig heads. I like to use a 10th ounce jig head. We're using smaller baits in that 2 to 3 inch range, so they're going to be lighter. I recommend going down to a medium light power rod, something that's going to have a lure weight rating in that 1/8 ounce to 3/8 ounce. You can go down to a 1/16, maybe up to a 1/2 ounce, but that sweet spot's going to be that 1/8 to 3/8 ounce. And the reason why is if you try to use something heavier like a medium power rod, your accuracy and your casting distance is going to come into play. You're not going to be able to cast cast it very far and you're not going to be accurate with it. So using a medium light power rod is going to be the better bet for these lighter lures. Now when it comes to the reel, something smaller in that 2000 to 2500 size, and I like using a composite reel and not a metal body reel because lighter is better in this situation. Typically with a lighter setup, and what I mean by lighter is the actual physical weight of it, it's going to be more sensitive. So a metal body reel that weighs a couple of more ounces, even though a lot of people might use them and they're a little bit more durable, in this situation it can actually be detrimental because that weight is going to absorb some of that feeling and you could miss some strikes that way. In the wintertime, these fish are notorious for having soft strikes, so you want a light setup. So this is where I like using a composite setup. So if you can find that reel in that 6 to 7 ounce range, and there's some even down in the 5 ounce range, that's what I like to use for a Ned Rig setup. So the lightest weight setup possible. Now the main line that I'm going to use is going to be anywhere from 5 to 8 pound braid, and I'm going to attach that to a 10 to 15 pound monofilament leader. Again, this is going to be a light finesse setup. Now some of you bass fishermen that might be familiar with a Ned Rig setup might think that's not really finesse, but in inshore fishing, that's about as far down as we're going to go. Now for anybody that's new to fishing or new to this technique, I recommend starting out with spinning equipment. Now the setup that I use for my Ned Rigs happens to be a bait casting setup, so I want to let you know if you're a bait casting angler, there are options for you. And if you have any questions about my casting setup, go ahead and put those down below in the comments and I'll answer them there. Now when it comes to the jig heads and the lures, if you're a purist, you want to use a mushroom jig head. I prefer using the Pro Shrooms jig head, and I'm typically going to be using a 1/10 of an ounce, and I might go up to a 1/6 of an ounce if the water's a little bit deeper or if I'm dealing with a little stronger current. Now, if you want to use a ball jig head, you can. So our round eye jig head will work fine. They're just a little bit heavier weight. They're usually around 1/8 of an ounce and up, but your lighter jig heads are going to be your mushroom style jig heads. Now, when it comes to the lures themselves, there is a plethora of soft plastics out there. I like to use our Polk County Tweaker, which is a 4-inch stick bait. What I'll do is I'll cut that in half. I'll put the tail section on there first. I'll use that until it won't stay on the hook anymore. Then I'll put the head section on there. I really haven't noticed a difference in the bite, but what's important here is the fact that you're using a 2 to 3 inch lure. So it could be any style you want. Could be a creature bait, it could be a straight stick worm, it could be even a little shrimp imitation, but the idea of it is because this is a finesse presentation, it's going to be a small lure. That's what's important. Now, in case you're not familiar with us here at Salt Strong, we actually have our own line of fishing equipment that we have, rods and reels and lures, but I'm happy to announce that for the very first time, when this video is launched, we should have our very first offering of a medium light rod in our Slam Stick series. Now this is a rod that sold out as soon as we came in, but that was in a medium power. We're getting those stock back in. So at the time this video drops, it should be available at Fish Strong. That's going to be the medium light Slam Stick, and this rod is specifically designed to cast far, be sensitive, and tough at the same time. So definitely check this one out. So I know there's a lot of information cram-packed into one video, but if you happen to have any more questions, go ahead and put those down in the comments below and I'll try to answer them then. So for you insiders, we have a mini course on Ned Rigs that's going to go more into the rigging and also the retrieval, so check that out. And if you're not an insider, I don't know what you're waiting for. We have so much that can help you out. If you're looking to step up your game, make sure and check us out at saltstrong.com and join the Insider Club. As always, I really hope this video helped you out, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye.